This episode is brought to you by Haunts of Richmond. As one of America's oldest cities, Richmond has many legends, sites, and lore to explore. So as the sun sets and the museums close, join Haunts of Richmond to hear the haunting tales amidst the beautiful architecture and darkest shadows of the city's historic neighborhoods.
Okay. As Richmond's original ghost tour company, Haunts of Richmond has the most experienced and professional supernatural guides of the city. Join them on one of the 6 classic walking tours or some of their many special events. Public and private tours and events are available year-round and can be perfect for date nights, family get-togethers, corporate and team building events, and birthday parties, and much more.
If you are curious and want to learn more, or you'd like to book a tour with them, check out their website and send them a message and let them know that we sent you. So to make it easy on you, we put all the information and the links in the bio of this episode. Thanks, everyone, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Phenomenon Paranormal podcast. And today we are really excited to have some special guests in the studio. We have Beth and Chris Houlihan here from Haunts of Richmond. And we're pretty excited to talk to them today about all the great tours that they offer. And so much of the history here in Richmond is what we were really excited about moving here when we first came. It's such a historical place. And I'm sure it lends a lot to what you guys do. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to first get started by just asking you in general to kind of maybe let our viewers know about the origins of Haunts of Richmond. Because I know it didn't initially start as a tour company, right?
No, actually it started as a haunted house down on 18th Street. And the founders, Scott and Sandy Bergman, had written a book called Haunts of Richmond, Shadows of Shockoe. Mm. And each of the rooms basically was a focus of one of their stories inside that book.
Nice.
About a year after they opened, they got a lot of people coming in saying, when's the walking tour leave? And they took the hint, and a year later we had the walking tour. 2 years later, we have the 2 guides, myself and Marcia, who are still with the company, working the tours. We've expanded to 3 routes. And then when Chris and I took over, we expanded out to 6 routes.
Wow.
Plus special events.
That's a lot of growth.
Yeah. That is.
That's a lot of growth in a short period of time, kind of, right? I mean, it didn't take that long to expand.
I had motivation, though. When we were offered the company by Scott and Sandy, I was a high school English teacher at the time, and I said, all right, I need to grow this so I can get out of the classroom.
There you go.
3 years later, I'm out of the classroom and retired.
Wow, that's so nice. I love hearing stories of people who can get to doing what they really want to be doing, like on a full-time basis. So that's really cool. Oh, yeah. You were going to say something there, Linda?
No, I mean, she started giving the tour. She got roped in by Marcia and Sandy. I wound up joining the company a couple years later, and then at the end of the 2015 season, Scott and Sandy decided they wanted to retire from the ghost tours.
Right.
They looked at us and asked us if we wanted to take over, so we've been running the company for a little over 7 years now.
Wow, that's so cool. I love that. I would love to do something like that, to spend just my full time focused on, anything in the paranormal or, I love hearing about history along with that. So it's a perfect combination. I did want to ask you when I was thinking about this, because I know for me, like what drives me into this field. So for either of you, were there any particular paranormal experiences you had that made you want to get involved in stuff like this?
I've been having experiences since I was 6.
Okay, great.
So my dad was a minister, so I grew up in parsonages and, those imaginary friends.
Oh, yes.
My more paranormal friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ever since then, I've been fascinated with the spooky. And then when I went to college for one of the theme house events that I developed, it was a haunted ghost tour on our campus. And that still goes today, actually. I developed it orally, and it got passed down, and they are still offering that on our alumni weekend.
Oh, that's fun.
That's really cool. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. And then for you...
I'm kind of the exact opposite. I'm not somebody that's, you could say, sensitive to the paranormal.
Right.
Given the line of work, I know a lot of people that are.
Yeah. Right. Sure.
But growing up, still, that said, my parents, they love to take my brother and I. We went traveling a lot, saw a lot of historic sites, grew up with an appreciation for
cool.
that.
Yeah.
And I just have always had an interest in paranormal stuff, ghost stories and that. So even though I'm not a sensitive person per se, still this is kind of right up my alley.
That's really cool. It's funny because the two of you have the sensitivity in common because she's had that. We just talked about this on an episode recently from a very young age.
Oh, yeah.
So she's more paranormally sensitive, and Anthony's always had this keen interest, but he's also a big history buff.
Yeah.
You know, so whenever he can talk about both, that's like his sweet spot. So,
I'll go on and on.
oh yeah, absolutely. So we had a haunted location, ironically, that we investigated in California, and they have activity after the attractions close. So it's a really cool spot. But one of the owners is an anthropologist, and the first time that they ever met, we had to pull them apart just so we could start investigating. So, it must be a cool thing for you being so interested in history.
Oh, yes.
And then same for you with your sensitivity, which brings me to something I was going to ask you down the line, but I'll ask you now. Being sensitive, it must be an interesting thing when you're on tour, on these tours in such active locations that, you can really relate to, certain things that you can relay to people because maybe you're sensitive in that moment.
Yeah, I always like to let them know if I start moving quickly, there's a reason.
Yes.
It's because either I'm sensing something or I'm seeing something.
Right.
It's one of those things. But there have been times where I have been giving a tour, for example, our Shadows of Shockoe tour, when we were able to get out to the Churchill train tunnel and tell the story there. Well, that's the first story he learned, so he'd always tell it on my tours.
Right.
When we got to October, he wasn't able to come on my tours, and all of a sudden I'm telling the story again. Well, we get up to the train tunnel, and I start talking about the history of the collapse and what's going on, and all of a sudden I feel a hand go right down my back. Now, mind you, I'm up against the iron fence, which is a straight drop down in front of the tunnel, so there's nobody there.
Right.
I ended up 5 feet on the other side of my guest, and I said, okay, so I'm going to start talking from over here. And they're like, what just happened? I was like,
Oh man.
oh, well, one of the ghosts here just said, hi, how you doing to me?
Right.
Wow.
Made themselves known.
That was one of the ones we covered in our first episode of doing the video was, the Richmond vampire.
Yes.
And that whole collapse, which to me, it was such a sad story, really.
Oh,
that whole,
absolutely.
Yeah.
that actually lingered with me for a while after we talked about it. So I can imagine being down there because we've talked about wanting to go visit and maybe do a little investigating.
There was an investigation there before you could actually get down into the area, but unfortunately it's all fenced off now as part of a courtyard for the apartments down there.
Okay.
When we were able to get down in there, I had a lot more interaction.
Right.
Apparently I look like somebody that the fireman knew.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's why he's drawn to me. He also says Marsha looks like somebody that he
Really?
knew. So we're the ones that get the interaction the most with.
Wow.
Wow.
That's intense.
It is. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I'm familiar to you, but doesn't mean I want you touching me.
Right.
Yeah.
There always has to be a boundary. of
Yes.
some
I'm
sort.
the same
Yeah.
way. We always tell when we do the spirit box sessions,
Right.
we're like, okay, you can't touch me, but we can talk. And sometimes it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
But it's unnerving.
Yes.
You know?
Right. Anthony and I will be like, you can touch us. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We're
they're
fine.
more drawn to her. So
Yeah.
When we do STs, I'll even feel like tapping
Yes.
the
on her
headphones,
earphones.
Yes.
Yeah.
and it
Wi-Fi.
freaks me out
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah,
And
they're-
we're not necessarily afraid
No.
of the spirits, but it's just that sort of unnerving thing when you're not expecting it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
yeah. And especially when you're in an SD session, you're
Yeah.
so focused on what you're
Yeah, you're honed
hearing.
in.
Right.
That even like something like this, which I've had
God.
happen to
Yeah.
We
me.
actually,
too.
in the beginning of our intro for a site, when we were at that haunted location, she was doing an Estes and her hair was moved 3 times in this,
Yeah.
like 1, 2, 3.
Very deliberate.
Yeah, while she was doing the session. So yeah, I mean, for her too, I don't know if you've had this happen when you do it, but she'll see things as well as hear them. So she'll see some very vivid images come through. So that's between that and touching is a little bit unnerving
Yeah.
for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did want to ask you too. The history of Richmond in general has left you guys now. You've expanded. You have what, 6? You say 6 tours.
Yep.
Is there which locations would you say are the real hot spots that you find that are the most popular maybe on your tours, or that people are really intrigued by? Because like Shockoe has always really interested me.
Shockoe definitely is a very active neighborhood. And as far as like if you're looking to join us on one of our tours and maybe see or have some sort of experience, I will say that the tours as we have traditionally run them are not really geared towards that. It's more traditional storytelling. But people do sometimes see things on the tours. We encourage people to take a lot of pictures because you never know what's going to show up in the photos.
Right, that's always nice.
Yeah, and probably the Poe Museum in Shockoe Bottom is one of the prime spots for that.
Right.
People will catch interesting things on there in the pictures that they take.
Body parts, shadow figures, orbs,
I love
sometimes
it.
eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Wow.
Now the tour is on the exterior of the
Yes.
Poe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, all of our tours are outdoor walking
Right.
tours, except for some of the special events that we offer.
Right.
But yes, the Poe Museum definitely is very much a hot spot for that. Another location probably that's very active can be up in Church Hill. I would say around Bellevue.
Yeah, Bellevue Elementary School. The elementary school is built on the site where Elizabeth Van Loo's mansion was located.
Okay.
And she's still there. She's in the school. She's helping the kids when they get lost, that sort of thing.
That's nice.
We've gotten a lot of orb activity. We've also had a guest catch an image of her manifesting on the stairs inside
nice.
the school. And she's been known to manipulate the electronics, at least she would before COVID happened. After COVID, because Bellevue is the sister school to Fox Elementary, and the electrical system's the same, they are
Yeah.
very, very hesitant to leave any electrical things on, like their
Right.
touchboard screens and stuff. So when they were on, she would actually manipulate them so they would flash when we would talk about her.
Oh, wow. I love that. It's almost like the flashlight experiment.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And now you mentioned Churchill and Shockoe. Now you have the Capitol tour as well, which
Yes.
to me I think would be really, really interesting to
Yeah.
get the history part in there too.
The history is amazing, going through what was a hub of financial activity with the canal system down in the Shockoe Slip area, which is where we start. Then we move up, of course, to the long imprinted energy on Capitol Hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even cover some, monumental church and the fires that happened on that property as well.
But yeah, there just about every building up on Capitol Hill has something going
Yeah.
on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
We've gotten so many stories.
Pictures up there.
Pictures up there, and when we started doing the tour up there, we have plenty of material to work with. But since we've been giving the tour, just more and more has been coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I would
Yeah.
imagine that it
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
expanded.
Particularly
We actually,
our friend
yeah.
our friend Paul Hope. He is a police officer by trade, and he did a stint with the Capitol Police.
Okay.
And he had so many of his own experiences that when he retired from that force and moved on to do something else, he wrote a book called Policing the Paranormal. And
Really?
yeah,
I'm going to have to look at that.
it's his experiences as well as some of those of his other police officer colleagues up there in Capitol Square, and just all kinds of stories from all across the Capitol Hill complex.
Wow.
Wow.
He actually had his very first experience night one.
Really?
Yeah. And
Well,
they-
that'll either make or break you, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it will. They actually joke that you are not a true Capitol Police officer until you've had an experience. And they have, well, at the time of the writing of Paul's book, 4 filing cabinets they dubbed the X-Files of
Wow.
incidences that they have experienced, they have documented, they can't explain it, and they still have to write a report on it.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
That's
I bet that
amazing.
book is a very interesting
Yeah.
read.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
It's true, though. I mean, if you follow any of paranormal social media these days, there are so many clips of footage from security guards.
Yes.
You know, people who are working these interesting locations after hours. So I can only imagine what someone working for Capitol Police must have seen.
Oh yeah, and
That's crazy.
they have a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
They know that certain staff members don't like to go in certain buildings after they're dark,
Right.
and they'll tease them a little bit sometimes if they have to come back to go to their office and ask for an escort.
Oh my gosh.
And every once in a while, I mean, fortunately, most of the activity up there, I mean, it can certainly be very frightening, particularly if you're not expecting it, but doesn't seem to be particularly malicious in any way.
Right.
Yeah.
There are spirits that are certainly they seem to deliberately set out to kind of mess with you.
Sure, of
Yeah.
course.
But it's more like having fun at your
Yeah.
expense than
Right.
actually
We're trying to
set-
get attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they call them
Exactly.
tricksters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
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 100%, which is, a good question for the two of you. And I don't get this inclination at all. But, there are people who are involved in paranormal fields who seem very afraid of it, yet they're involved in it.
Right.
But you two seem to really embrace it. So do you ever have any sort of fear about what you're doing? I mean, you're obviously around it all of the time.
Yeah. I'll say I personally, I don't. And it probably is directly related to the fact that I'm not somebody that's a more sensitive individual.
Right.
I'm the person that the investigative teams like to have along to be kind of that professional debunker, if
Right.
nothing else.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I haven't had some unusual experiences, that I haven't been there when things have happened that really can't be explained.
Right.
But I'm not somebody to really see it with my own eyes or hear it with my own ears types thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
that's probably I would say that definitely is related to the fact that helps me be able to approach it and not necessarily really be scared of it.
Right.
I have a healthy respect for it.
There you go.
Having been bruised several times.
Right.
Right.
If it's an area I am not familiar with, you can bet I'm going in with protection.
Sure.
Yeah.
If it's an area I've been jumped or something along those lines, I'm definitely going in with protection if I go in at all.
Right.
Right.
When we do our investigations up at Hanover Tavern, I don't go in the jail unless I absolutely have to, because what's in there doesn't like me.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, we've seen plenty of things where, especially in a jail situation, maybe that they don't like women in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in other locations like that, or, like we always say, we don't necessarily, we're not the everything's a demon people.
Oh, no.
At all.
No.
We're not those people. But obviously there are nice people in life and not so nice people in life,
Yeah.
and the same in death. So,
Yeah, as I said, you don't change when you've
Right.
died.
No, you are who you are.
exactly.
If you're a bad person,
Yeah.
you're going to be a bad person.
If the way we feel, if it's lingering energy that's left behind, I mean, that energy is going to be what it was always, right?
Yes.
It's not
Especially in a
gonna
jail
be-
setting with so much violence.
Yeah.
happening
Right.
there,
Absolutely.
And there have been times when I've walked into a room and done a nope.
Yeah.
Walked right back out. I'm like,
Right.
whatever's in here, it's a bad energy. I'm not hanging around.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you have a balance, though, of somebody who is sensitive and somebody who can say, well, maybe there's an explanation, but yet you're not going to discount everything either.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I could see why you'd be valuable on an investigation. I get that.
Definitely keep an open mind.
Yeah. That's good, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing, really, truly, even though we're believers.
Yeah.
We do also try and look for the explanation
Yeah.
where there could be
Right.
one. So,
Actually,
go ahead.
I did
Yeah.
want to ask something. So I know you had mentioned some of your interactions you've had already, but on your tours, is there any in particular that were notable that you would want to maybe share with people about certain locations you've experienced?
A lot of the ones that I have are in Shockoe Bottom,
Okay.
specifically at the train tunnel.
Right.
So I have actually had somebody play with my hair. I always, if it's down, they will stroke it and they will
Right.
pull on it. So I always have it tied back when I go on that tour.
Yeah.
I've been tapped from my shoulder. In fact, one of our guests got a picture of a full-bodied shadow figure doing this behind me.
Oh, wow.
And it's always Ben. Ben is the
Yeah.
one who is connecting with me. We've had experiences inside the Poe Museum as well. In fact, there's a building there I don't like to go into.
Okay.
The staircase in it is haunted. It's got an entity attached to it who we think is John Allen,
Okay.
and he doesn't like women. So it's not just me; it's
Right.
other
Women in
women.
general,
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is the one where I've been bruised several
Oh, wow.
times. So,
Wow.
That said, we love the Poem Museum.
We
and
do.
We strongly encourage people to visit there.
Right.
right.
But again, that's one
Yeah.
of those
Just
buildings where I wear
Sure, of
protection
course.
Yeah.
when I go in.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard for people too when they aren't sensitive to know what it's like
Yeah.
to walk in those shoes.
Yeah.
And the only reason I can relate at all is because of her. I'm not as sensitive as she is. And
Yeah.
but like, since she was a little girl, she's had this going on. So just knowing what she's gone through, I can kind of understand it. But
Yeah.
for people who aren't, they're just kind of like, what's the big deal? But,
Yeah.
they will come toward people who are sensitive much more often.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a great experience in the tavern the first time we went up and got a tour of it right before you joined the board.
Right.
Steve Dills, who is now the president of the board at the tavern, was taking us through, and we were in what was known as the hyphen area upstairs, and it's right around the rooms where the theater crew used to live when they were living and serving in that area. And he was telling us about a little girl that's up in that area. Now, at that moment, both Steve and I heard a little girl go, "Leave." We look at each other and
Yeah.
like, "Did you
Yeah.
hear that?" He heard nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was one of those things that both of their jaws dropped,
Mm.
eyes wide open. They
Yeah.
looked right at each other, and I'm there just like,
What?
what?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
their simultaneous reaction was definitely said
Right.
that
Right.
that's the kind of thing I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, exactly. It's strange, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I guess I equate it to when we each have different levels of how well we can hear with an Estes method session. He can hear far less. I am sort of middle of the road, and she's like has a direct line to someone that she's on the phone with,
Yeah.
hearing everything they say. And we even had Ray do our producer over here, an Estes session, and he'd never done one. So that was kind of like he was trying to gauge what all was even happening, and trying to hear. So, I mean, we've heard things outside of the spirit box too on occasion where one of us will hear one thing, the other one heard something totally different. So I just feel like there's these different frequencies that are always going on around us.
Yeah.
And we may not all be hearing the same one at the same
Yeah.
time.
I've always been sensitive to auditory
Yes.
experiences myself. I mean, even in our last home, I always heard this angry man who seemed like he did not want us there. And I didn't know the history, but I guess the man had died in the house who was not very nice. So it made sense.
We found out later that he was a very serious criminal.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. And he had
Yeah.
ended up having cancer and died in the home.
Yeah.
And she would always hear him in her room, just not want her
Angry.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm much more a visual, so
Yeah.
I will see them before I hear them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I have gotten better with the Estes the longer
Yeah.
I do it, because part of it is also just getting used to
Getting
the
tuned
rhythm.
in.
Right.
Right.
But my first few sessions with it, it was very difficult for me because it was too much.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
lot.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, especially for you because they were probably really drawn to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about filtering it out. That's what I have a harder time with, but I try. I was going to ask you, because you've mentioned Shockoe, and of course that's the one that's always interested me. For people who don't know the history of Shockoe, I mean, why do you think that concentrated area has so much more activity maybe?
Oldest part of the city.
Okay.
Oldest part of the city by far. It's where Richmond was founded.
Right.
When the city was laid out back in 1737, it stretched from what is now the modern 17th Street to 25th Street, and from the riverfront up to Broad Street.
Oh, wow.
And so it basically comprises what we know as Shockoe Bottom today. And over the years, it's seen every chapter of Richmond history, of course, American history, because going back to the colonial era.
Absolutely.
A lot has happened down there.
Plus, you have the Native American history.
yeah.
It was a major trading area for them.
Right.
And not all the history is nice.
No.
Particularly down there, you got to recognize that Shockoe Bottom was back before the Civil War the second largest slave trading market anywhere in the United States.
Yeah.
Second only to New Orleans.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, New Orleans was the top slave trading market, and Richmond, Shockoe Bottom in particular, was only second to that. So you got all that. You got the Civil War history, you got Revolutionary War history, and you have everything else in
Right.
between that has
Right.
happened down there over the years. So,
Wow.
yeah.
There's a lot of energy that's been imprinted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's so much, like even where we are now, we're in a suburb of Richmond here, and they have had how many mine disasters just in this general area.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so you just, you know, really take in what all went on down there and in Richmond in general. It's kind of staggering the amount of energy that must, you know, still be clinging
Oh,
to
yeah.
the area.
Absolutely.
Anthony, there was something I think that you wanted to ask.
Well, there's a lot of history. Obviously, you guys are talking about, and there's a lot of locations you've discovered, but there's also a lot of stories that get told over time that through research you guys have found is not true, but yet there's still activity happening around it. Is there a particular story like that kind of sticks out to you guys?
Where the history's been kind of debunked, but there still seems to be some activity in the area.
So we've kind of talked about that before. We kind of call it thought form hauntings,
Right.
where the people that have put that energy out, and because of the history, it already has put so much energy in that area. It's kind of like
It's
a
like
perfect
the
storm.
game of telephone type of thing where
Yeah.
it kind of gets twisted a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the story that's been most commonly misconstrued over the years is the story of the Churchill train tunnel.
Right.
Right.
There are still people out there today that think that the tunnel collapsed on a passenger train full of 200 people, which
Because it made it on the internet, and that's where people read it.
Right.
So it's got to
Yeah,
be
they
true.
regurgitate it. Yeah.
so not even remotely close to true. But we know that events did happen there, and it certainly stands to reason that the hauntings that are experienced there today do tie to the events that did in fact happen.
Right.
But so it makes sense, and that's from that standpoint. But as far as you could say like a collective consciousness almost creating a haunting from something that did not
Exactly.
really happen. I can't think of any examples of that in Richmond. I mean, might be possible, but nothing's coming to my mind.
Nothing's coming to mind unless the only place I can think of is if it's one of the former Civil War hospitals.
Possibly that could very well possibly be something because there's so many buildings that did serve as Civil War hospitals, and
We stop outside two of them, so people see us there and they're like, "Oh, my floor must be haunted," even though we don't have any records
Right.
of
Right.
previous hauntings. They start to think
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
which is not to say that they haven't moved,
Right.
because
Sure.
they do.
Yeah.
Also, Libby Prison area. A lot of people like to say there's haunting in the parking lot there, and there's never been a recorded haunting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you think back to stone theory or the imprinting on a building, that building went to Chicago
Yeah.
Really?
for the
Wow.
World's Fair, and so anything that was imprinted on those stones moved with
With
those
them.
stones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me anybody who has those stones if there's something attached to them.
Sure,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of look at the Richmond vampire story as one of those kind of stories because, you know, even what was the name of the where he was buried with the fangs? What was his name?
WW.
WW. Yep.
Yeah.
Who wasn't even involved in the train collapse at all.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's who people would identify as being the Richmond vampire.
And it's all because there was a smear article
Right.
claiming he was from London and run out of town as
Right.
a
Yeah,
vampire, which he
right.
wasn't.
Yeah.
He was born in the U.S.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And we'll admit we were taken in by that story for quite a long time.
Because one of our guides actually found the story. We're like, oh, okay.
There you go. And you run with it, right? Yeah.
But yeah, we since found out it's like no, he was not from England. He was Alabama. Right?
Alabama. We were
Yeah.
actually we were able to trace him through his Masonic records.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
okay.
Wow.
I thought that was always interesting, his Masonic origins. So
Right.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Which, of course, people see that and automatically, oh, well, that's
That's a
even
whole
further
nother-
proof,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whole new ball game, right?
Yeah.
If you were a Mason.
So, I will say something very interesting I did find, though, in digging back through the records to see if there was any kind of tie to England. I can't say it necessarily ties directly to the story, but in the 1850s or 60s, I was searching through some newspaper records from England, and Richmond Vampire kept popping up over and over and over again.
Really?
Really?
It was the name of a racehorse.
Oh, my
Oh
goodness.
my god.
They were doing reports on the horse races,
Oh
and the
my
name
gosh.
Richmond Vampire shows up over and over and over
How
again. And
funny.
That's funny.
so
Wow.
I don't know if that somehow got mixed in with things
Yeah.
as well, because
Interesting.
that would have been right about the time that that Mr.
Poole
Poole
died.
Right.
was born.
Oh, was
Oh,
born.
was
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, he would have been alive during that time. Again, I don't
The
know how the
irony.
connection
Yeah.
will be made.
Wow.
But yeah, it's really kind of weird.
Yeah, that is.
Synchronicities, right? I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's right. Synchronicity is
One
there.
thing we should look at, though, is because Richmond's named after Richmond on the Thames, was that where the racehorse was from, and is there a vampire there?
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Good question.
That's it.
New rabbit hole.
Yeah.
More research to do.
Which episode? Let's see. Now, I was going to ask you, we've talked about the group walking tours that you guys have, but there's also private tours, right?
Yes.
You do offer that. Can you tell us how those work?
Private tours are very similar to what we do with the regular tours, except for we can manipulate them. For example, we like to call a drop-off or pick-up drop-off.
Okay.
These are great for like birthday parties. If you're having dinner somewhere near one of our routes, we pick you up at the restaurant, and then we walk you around and drop you off where you want to be
that's
picked
nice.
up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also a way for us to test our new tours until, be able to tweak them until we know they're right. So with our newest tour, which is the
Specters and Shades of Court End.
Wow.
we just did that for a convention this past Sunday and Monday. So they were able to buy tickets to it, and we realized, okay, nope, we need to switch this slightly and tweak
Yeah.
it.
Good. Yeah.
That sort of thing. So it's a good testing ground for us.
I like that.
But yeah, that just went live actually for public for sale the first time that you can go on a website and you can buy tickets for that new tour on June 9th.
Can you tell us a little bit about that particular one?
Yeah, so that tour is the Court End neighborhood.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with exactly where that is, it's basically the area immediately north of Broad Street, opposite Capitol Square.
Oh, okay.
So it's the area where, the modern courts buildings are there, but the courts buildings have been in that area for a long time. And
John Marshall's house is
John
over
Marshall's
there.
house
Right.
is there. So yeah, Supreme Court Justice
Wow.
John Marshall's house is there, featured on the tour, it got all kinds of activity, not just related to the courts and John Marshall, but a wide variety of activity in that neighborhood
Really?
from one end to the other. So
nice.
it's lent us a lot of material to work with, and we actually have a lot of appreciation for the John Marshall house. We wouldn't have been able to do this tour without them. Because a couple of years ago, we started actually partnering directly with them.
Right.
We have another specialty tour where you go inside and you get about a 30 to 40 minute ghost tour of the John Marshall house
Wow.
that's led by
Nice.
them. And then you would come outside with us and we do like an abbreviated outdoor tour of the rest of Court End.
Oh, wow.
So we're still doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still doing that. It's a special event for us, but it did also give us the opportunity to kind of be able to pace things out, walking around the neighborhood, see what else was around there, and combining that with our historic research and stuff like that, we were able to figure out that we could do a full tour or standalone
Right.
tour as well. So got a couple of tours in the Court End neighborhood now.
Nice.
Oh, that's really. I would love to see the John Marshall
Yeah.
house too, because I
Yeah.
hear it's a really great location.
It is, and look forward to getting the next date for that on the calendar.
Right.
Might be midsummer before we do that. It's primarily kind of one of those winter type of events for us.
Okay.
Because
Right.
when it's cold out, people, it
Gives them something to do.
Yeah,
Right?
it gives them something to do,
Yeah.
and the fact that you get almost the first half of the entire event inside
Inside,
somewhere
Yeah.
appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
Like-
can understand that.
But yeah, we are going to try to offer it a couple times through the summer as well. Just have to work out the dates with them.
Oh, that's really, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, because we've talked about like some paranormal investigating type of stuff. Obviously, you guys have a lot on your plate. You have a lot of different tours that you cover. But have you thought about doing any sort of hosting of investigations at any of the locations that might want to partner with you or?
That's sort of our next push.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have the equipment. We actually sell the equipment now.
I do. Nice.
We are working to figure out how to do our Paranormal 101 tour and class,
Nice.
where we'll actually have 4 hours at a specific location, take you outside, kind of play with the equipment, and then one specific location with that. Since several of our guides are trained investigators, we're going to try to offer some of our tours with some equipment that can go out with you. Kind of just to show you the ins and
Right.
outs of the equipment. But being an urban neighborhood, obviously not all equipment is going to work.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
Right.
Of course. Well, that's really great. I love that idea. And I thought, who would be better to do it than
Yeah.
somebody who's so familiar
Yeah.
with everything in the area. So
And
that's
we did an investigation trip this past December down to Key West.
oh really?
Really?
So we took a group of people down there, investigated in 2 different locations, stayed at a haunted hotel as well.
Oh, fun.
That's awesome.
It was a very fun experience.
Yeah.
Don't know when or if we're gonna try to put something like that back on the calendar again, but
Right.
it was a great experience. And,
Yeah.
no,
Oh yeah,
no
I can
regrets.
imagine.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a very different world out here from a paranormal investigation standpoint because we're from California and in the area that we're located, we could find plenty of places that would allow an investigation to happen and go and do. But out here, it seems to be like there's groups that put on the events more so than there are places who are just open to having somebody come
Yeah.
in.
Very much so. Yeah. There's a lot of paranormal investigative teams in the area that have pretty active partnerships with a lot of historic locations.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say the I guess you could say the one exception to that might be is that when we do get into like October, a lot of locations they pull out the stops if they don't necessarily work with a paranormal investigative team
Right.
all year round. Like some of the plantations on Route 5 in particular, they will do like their own little ghost walks or paranormal investigative type of things
Right.
in October. So there's some of that, but a lot of the stuff that goes on year round is very much organized through some of the investigative teams that are in the area.
Right, right. Yeah, I definitely noticed that as being a big difference when we came
Yeah.
out here. Is there something you guys haven't done yet, aside from the paranormal thing we were just talking about, that like maybe a different area adjacent, like another type of tour that you've been wanting to kind of sink your teeth into, aside from Court End?
Oh, I think we've been talking about it, and our next step, no idea when that will be. Aside from actually starting to like maybe do some of the investigative type stuff
Right.
as part of the business line, would be to possibly see about expanding the tours on wheels type
Okay,
thing.
right.
So we do have a partnership with RVA Tuk Tuk, which very appreciative of them and love being able to do that with them. But maybe to see if there's something that could take it to the next level.
15-person bus.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
But
Or
we're-
hearse, as a lot of our guides would prefer.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I would love that.
If I could get an antique hearse that will hold 10 people, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
But if we were to do that, like with what Tuk Tuk does right now, they take bits and pieces of all of our existing tour routes. So it's still very much focused on downtown Richmond.
Right.
I think what we would be considering if we were to try and get into that ourselves would be vehicles that are, you could say, more maybe highway capable, even be able to extend the reach a little
Right.
bit to get to some of these places that are a little off the beaten path, and obviously so we can't feature them on our walking tours.
Sure, yeah.
But that's something that's kind of bubbling in the back of our mind. We don't have any distinct time frame for that. If it were to happen, I think we'd still be looking several years out.
Yeah.
So
Well, you guys kind of have your hands full right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a year-round operation,
Yeah.
right? So, are you busy all year round?
no.
No,
We do
Okay.
have our highs and lows.
Sure, of
Obviously,
course.
October is a high.
Yeah.
But we also, summertime's really picking up.
Right.
We get a lot of families asking for tours around the holidays,
Yeah.
you know, things to do along those lines. But we do have a low kind of the beginning of December for a little bit, and then immediately after Christmas, we get
Right.
another lull.
Right.
Plus, also chilly.
Just happened.
I don't know.
Something
It
just fell off the shelf. on
Yeah.
Planchet just fell.
Oh, did
it
it?
just
Okay. Sure. We tend to bring the energy in here with us. Yeah, Ray, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But so for our Ouija board demonstration. No,
Yeah.
no, she's like, no.
Nope, had to put too many of those to rest.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was strictly for display, I promise.
Yeah.
So I guess for us, is there anything that you would want to let the viewers know that we haven't covered, like any announcements of anything coming up or?
So we do also do Facebook Live shows.
Oh, really?
Yes.
This is interesting.
When COVID hit, I had no job.
There you go.
Crawling up the walls, need something to do. He told me to write scripts.
All right.
So we started Facebook Live doing a show a week. And then once we were able to go back out and do tours again, we are now every other week. So our next one is this coming Monday. And it will
great.
be Haunted
England. Yep.
And we usually go every other week, but because we're actually going to be out of country shortly, we're doing 2 weeks back to back.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, that's fun. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It's really cool.
And I will say, I mean, it's something that, it's a lot of fun for us.
Right.
Our production budget is literally like
Drinking.
It's a 6-year-old Android tablet and whatever booze we have on.
There,
Yeah.
that can be a fun show right there.
Yeah.
And
It is.
cats.
Let me tell you.
And
Cats.
cats.
Because we have
Love
4
that.
cats, and
Yeah.
Yes.
they are the stars of the show.
There you go.
We do not do a studio setting or anything like that.
Right.
We just set up in the living room or something like
Hey.
that.
Right.
The cats come and go as they please, and it's
I love it.
It's very much off the cuff, but
You'll occasionally see us, excuse me, something just happened. I have to go check
Yes.
the cat.
Yeah.
Well, from people who have quite a few animals at home, we can certainly relate to that.
Yes.
But no, I think that's really cool because I know one of the things that kind of kept people's sanity a little bit when COVID hit was all the different locations that did a lot of virtual walkthroughs that you could do, like the catacombs
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Paris, you know,
Yeah.
different places that kind of kept people connected, I think, to
Yeah.
what was going on in the world when we couldn't be, you know, so it's cool.
it was that actually I think is, even though it's something that we put out there for free, it's also, it did help us kind of, it renewed our interest, reminded us how much fun and interesting it is for us to actually dive in and to do the research, to
Right.
do the writing, because what we do on the show, we'll just pick a topic and run with it. As we said, like this next one's Haunted England.
Right.
Right.
So it's going to be just stories that catch our interest from all across England, outside of London. London,
London
Right.
we have covered on many, many different
Yeah.
Yeah, of
topics.
course.
but yeah. So and we've also done not just places, but like we've done episodes on haunted hotels and
Right.
haunted
Right.
cemeteries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've done some offbeat stuff, like we did a UFO episode.
Yeah.
And but yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. And so we got a library. I lost track. I think we're up in the 80s as far as number of episodes that we've done now.
Right.
So,
And everything's on YouTube as well. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's
I'm
really
going to
cool.
definitely follow that and check it
Yeah.
out because
Yeah.
I love stuff like that. And when it comes to research, I mean, I love just jumping in the rabbit hole and
Yeah.
and seeing where it takes me. you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun.
yeah, and we have been able to start spinning some of that into public presentations as
Yes.
well.
So we just did 4 panels at GalaxyCon this past March.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Right.
We have submitted for 3 more panels for their Nightmare Weekend in October.
We're bummed that we're not going to be able to go to Nightmare
Oh.
Weekend because she's going to be in a wedding in California.
Yes.
Oh,
We
Yeah.
saw it announced and we're like, yes.
Yeah.
And then we saw the date. So bummer. But
Yeah.
yeah, next year.
Yeah.
and we also did an event at the why am I blanking?
The Branch Museum.
Branch Museum. Thank
Yep.
you. Sorry, our
Haunted architecture
Yes.
at the Branch
Yeah.
Museum.
Oh, nice.
And
So-
they've asked us back again this coming October to do a walk and tell stories in each of the rooms there.
So we still have to figure out the exact logistics of that, but we'll be back doing another special event with them.
Wow.
So,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You guys are really busy and that's a good thing.
yeah,
It's always a good thing.
and we're always reaching out and happy to make new friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to, when you guys get your investigation stuff going. I mean, we'd love to come and enjoy that with you,
be a part of it,
and get out there. We're itching to go out and investigate right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
It'll probably be, we're aiming for later this year.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can stick to that.
Yeah.
But that's tentatively what we're looking at for actually getting out and having some investigative events that people can sign up for with us.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck with all your endeavors and the newest
Yeah.
one with Court's End and everything else we were just talking about. And I guess the last thing I would have to say is, can you tell people who might be coming to Richmond, vacation, visiting family, why should they go to Haunts of Richmond?
Oh, it's because you're going to get a look at Richmond history in a way that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
I will say, above all else, we're a ghost tour company, but our top priority is to make sure that the history that we relay on our tours that's associated with the ghost stories is accurate. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, we had a little mishap. We've realized that we had some wrong information around the Richmond vampire story.
Right.
We've corrected that, and we're very passionate about making sure that what we share is going to be accurate. And so
That's
it's
important.
it's an offbeat way to get Richmond's history, and whether you believe in ghosts or not is really kind of irrelevant. Most people that join us for the tours, they do believe in ghosts. But even for those that don't, if you have an appreciation for history and you can appreciate a good story, even if you don't necessarily take it at face value, we think that you're going to enjoy a tour with us.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We've been out doing it for, well, as we said, since 2005 was when the tour started, and we have respectively each been involved with the company for over 10 years for myself, over 15 years for you, or roughly 15 years for you. So been out there doing it for a long time. And many of our guides, it's the same thing as well. We actually have, there's 9 guides on the roster that work for us and give these tours. And I think our newest guides have still been with us for almost
2 years
2
now.
years now, coming up on 2 years now. And even they also had previous experience giving not Richmond ghost tours, but as tour guides. And so we have a very, very experienced group of guides that are just as passionate about the material that we share as we are.
Right.
The one thing you want to do when you travel is also get the news from the local, where to eat, where to go, all that stuff.
Exactly.
That's why you want to go with the local company, because we can give you that.
Right. That's well said, actually.
You're the concierge.
I am. I've been told I am a better concierge than the ones they have had in some of their diamond hotels here in town.
Well, like you said, it's important. Like for us, that's why we were so excited to have you guys on, because we're new here, relatively new here, and still, like I said, getting our feet wet. There's a ton of places we haven't seen, so it's really great to hear from you guys what you do and how dedicated you are to making sure that you have all the accurate information. And so we're definitely you're gonna see us on one of the Tuk Tuk tours, I think, coming up real quick. So thank you guys for being here. And we are going to have all your information and links in the info box so people can find everything that they need to know on how to, book some tours. And for us, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see more of our interesting, weird podcasts, because we like the weird.
Yes.
We like the weird.
Yes.
Thank you guys very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for
Really
having
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah.
Anthony, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I want to thank again everyone who came to watch us today. Thank you for the Haunts of Richmond for being here. And remember, guys, don't fear the unknown.